You've done this 1,000 times. Check the label. Check the patient. Hang the bag. That's it. 3 steps. You could do it in your sleep. And tonight you basically did. It's 3 a.m. You're 11 hours into a 12-hour shift. The ward is quiet. The patient in room 7 is stable, post-op, waiting on a transfusion. You grab the bag from the refrigerator, you check the tag, you walk in, you hang it. You walk out. 30 seconds, maybe less. You don't think about it again. Not until the monitor starts screaming. Here's the thing about catastrophic medical errors. They almost never happen in a single dramatic moment. They happen in a chain of small, quiet ones. And the chain that leads to tonight started 6 hours ago, when the blood bank sent up 2 bags instead of 1. 2 patients. 2 bags. They came up together in the same transport cooler, labeled correctly, but placed side by side, nearly identical tags, nearly identical packaging. Someone in the blood bank put them in the wrong order. You didn't know that. You had no reason to check. By the time you pulled one bag from the refrigerator at 3 a.m., the other bag, the one meant for room 12, was sitting exactly where room 7's bag should have been. You are a good nurse. That is not a small thing to say. You have 6 years on this ward. You know your patients. You know their charts. You've caught other people's mistakes, wrong dosages, missed allergies, mislabeled samples. You are exactly the kind of nurse the system relies on to be the last line of defense. And that is precisely the problem. Because the system is supposed to have multiple checkpoints before it ever reaches you. The blood bank is supposed to verify. The transport team is supposed to verify. The charge nurse is supposed to verify. Tonight, every one of those checkpoints failed quietly, invisibly, before your shift even started. You inherited a mistake that was already 3 steps old. The patient in room 7 is 43 years old. His name is Daniel. He came in 2 days ago for a routine bowel resection, the kind of surgery this hospital performs 12 times a week. His blood type is A positive. Everything about his chart is clean. Post-op recovery going exactly as expected. The transfusion was ordered because his hemoglobin dropped slightly overnight. Standard protocol, nothing alarming. His wife went home at 10 p.m. because the attending told her he was doing well. She'll be back in the morning. Daniel is asleep when you walk in. He doesn't stir when you hang the bag. He doesn't feel the first few milliliters enter his vein. And for about 7 minutes, neither of you knows anything is wrong. You're at the nurse's station updating charts when it happens. Not a slow alarm. Not a soft beep. The monitor in room 7 fires a full cardiac alert. You're on your feet before you consciously decide to move. You're through the door in seconds. Daniel is awake now, but not the way you want someone to be awake. He's agitated, confused, saying his back hurts, his chest feels tight. His face is flushing. His blood pressure is dropping on the monitor. You look at the 4 line. You look at the bag. And somewhere in the back of your mind, not the front, not yet, because your brain is still trying to protect you from what it already knows, a thought begins to form. You call the rapid response team. You call it fast, that part you do right and it matters. While you wait the 90 seconds it takes them to arrive, you are running through your own checklist in real time. Back pain, chest tightness, flushing, dropping pressure. You know what this cluster means. Every nurse who has ever worked with blood products knows what this cluster means. Your eyes go back to the bag. You look at the label. You look at the patient wristband. You scan the blood type printed on the tag, B negative. And then you look at Daniel's wristband. Positive. The bag you hung is not his. The blood moving through his vein right now is the wrong type. His immune system has already started to recognize it as foreign. And it is fighting back with everything it has. What is happening inside Daniel's body right now has a name. Acute hemolytic transfusion reaction. And it is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a human being in a hospital bed. His immune system is treating the incoming blood cells as invaders and destroying them, rapidly, aggressively. The byproduct of that destruction is being released into his bloodstream, and his kidneys are the first organ to take the hit. Without immediate intervention, this can cascade into kidney failure, shock, disseminated intravascular coagulation, a condition where the blood loses its ability to clot entirely, and then multi-organ failure. You know all of this. You learned it in nursing school. You've read about it in incident reports. But you have never, in 6 years, stood in a room where it was happening. Until right now. The rapid response team is in the room. You have already stopped the transfusion. That was the first thing you did the second you confirmed the mismatch. But stopping the infusion doesn't undo what was already given. 60 to 80 milliliters. That's the estimate. 60 to 80 milliliters of B-negative blood now circulating through a body built for A positive. The attending physician takes one look at the situation and starts issuing orders: saline push, diuretics to protect the kidneys, labs, a fresh cross-match, monitoring every vital in real time. The room that was silent at 3 a.m. is now full of people and noise and movement. And in the middle of it, you are standing at the foot of the bed, having clamped the line, having called the team, having done everything right in the last 4 minutes, while the one thing you did wrong 7 minutes ago plays on a loop in your head. You think the hardest part is behind you. You stopped it. You called it. He's getting help. But what happens in the next hour and what happens to you in the next 72, that's a different story entirely. Daniel survives the night. That is the first thing you need to know. His kidneys take a hit. His labs are alarming for several hours, but the team stabilizes him by sunrise. He will spend an extra 4 days in the ICU. He will recover. But the moment he is out of immediate danger, something else begins, and it moves just as fast. The hospital's patient safety officer is notified before 5 a.m. By 6 a.m., the incident has been formally flagged as a serious adverse event. By the time the morning shift walks in at 7, your name is already in a report. Not as the villain. Not yet. Just as the nurse on duty. But your name is in a report, and that report is going to be read by people you have never met who will spend the next several weeks deciding what your name means. You are pulled from the floor at 6:30 a.m., 30 minutes before your shift ends, and brought to a small room down the hall from the nursing director's office. Your union rep is called. That's protocol. You are not being accused of anything in this room. The language is careful, procedural, almost gentle. But you understand the shape of what is happening. You are being interviewed. Your recollection of the night is being recorded. Every step you took or didn't take is being reconstructed. And as you sit there, exhausted, still in your scrubs, still running on the adrenaline of the last 3 hours, you realize that the version of events you are about to give will become the official version. What you say in this room will be in every document that follows. So you have to be exact. And you have to be honest. Even about the parts that make you look careless. Because the parts you leave out, they always find those. The root cause analysis, the formal investigation, will eventually identify not one failure but 7. 7 distinct points in the system where a different decision, a different design, a different protocol would have prevented what happened. The blood bank receiving 2 orders simultaneously without a flagging system. The transport cooler without individual compartments. The refrigerator without a patient-keyed access lock. The ward's transfusion checklist, which exists, but which on overnight shifts is often completed from memory rather than physically with the chart in hand. The absence of a 2-nurse verification requirement for transfusions on your unit specifically, a requirement that exists in 17 other hospitals in your state but not this one. The fatigue policy that technically limits overtime but has no enforcement mechanism. And then, at the end of the list, you, not as the cause, as the final point of failure in a system designed to fail. Here is what no investigation report will ever fully capture. What it feels like to be the nurse who sits in that chair. You did not walk into that hospital to hurt someone. You walked in for the 11th hour of a shift that had already asked everything of you. You work on a ward that is chronically understaffed. 4 nurses for 18 patients overnight. A ratio that your charge nurse has flagged in writing to administration 3 times in the past year. You followed the steps you were trained to follow. You followed them imperfectly, yes, the physical chart verification, the double check against the blood bank slip. Those steps exist and you did not do them the way the protocol describes. But you did not create the environment that made those shortcuts feel routine. That environment was already there when you arrived. The investigation will acknowledge this. But acknowledgement and accountability are not the same thing. And both of them are coming for you. You think the worst of this is the investigation. You think once they find the system failures, once they acknowledge the understaffing, once the report is written, it's over. But what comes at level 4 is something no hospital training ever prepared you for. 3 days after the incident, Daniel's wife finds out what happened. Not from you. Not from the hospital's patient liaison. She finds out because Daniel told her what little he understood from overhearing the team talk in his room during the crisis. She comes to the nursing director's office. She is not screaming. She is quiet, which is somehow worse. She wants to know how this happened. She wants to know who was responsible. She wants to know what is going to happen to that person. The hospital's patient advocate walks her through the investigation process, the system failures, the corrective actions being implemented. She listens to all of it, and then she asks the question that none of the process language can answer. Where is the nurse? Can I talk to her? Does she know what almost happened to my husband? The hospital's legal team advises against direct contact between you and the patient's family while the investigation is open. You are told this professionally, carefully. But you are not told that you cannot write a letter. You spend 4 days writing it. You throw away 9 drafts. The 10th one you keep. You do not make excuses in it. You do not list the system failures. You do not mention the staffing ratios or the blood bank or the transport cooler. You write 3 paragraphs. You tell Daniel you are sorry. You tell him you think about him every day. You tell him that what happened to him changed how you will practice for the rest of your career, if you still have one. You give the letter to the patient liaison. You never find out if he reads it. The State Board of Nursing opens a separate proceeding. This is distinct from the hospital investigation. The hospital is investigating the system. The board is investigating you, your license, your competence, your fitness to practice. You hire an attorney. That costs money you were not expecting to spend. The proceeding takes 9 months. 9 months of your license technically active, but your hospital has placed you on administrative leave pending the outcome. 9 months of going in for mandatory check-ins, reviewing documents, preparing statements. 9 months during which you cannot work as a nurse at this hospital, and during which every other hospital in the area knows your name is in a board proceeding because it is public record. You have 6 years of clean history. You have letters of support from colleagues and attending physicians. And you have a single night, a single mistake inside a system full of mistakes. That is now the thing your entire career is being measured against. The board's decision, when it finally comes, is this: a formal reprimand on your record, a mandatory continuing education requirement in blood product safety, and a 6-month probationary period during which your practice is supervised. Your license is not revoked. You are not barred from nursing. In the language of disciplinary outcomes, this is considered a moderate sanction, not the worst, not a dismissal. Your attorney tells you this is a good result. And objectively, it is. But a formal reprimand on a nursing license is a public document. It lives on the board's website. Every future employer who checks your license, and they all check, will see it. Every application, every interview, every new ward you walk into for the rest of your career begins with a conversation you did not choose to have. You think the board decision is the end of it. The professional chapter closed. But there is one more level. And it is the one nobody talks about when they talk about medical error. You go back to work. A different hospital, a different ward, a fresh start, or as close to one as the public record allows. You are careful now in a way you were not before. Not paranoid careful. You verify twice. You slow down even when the ward is burning. You have become, in a technical sense, a safer nurse. The system intervention worked, at least on you. But here is what the outcome report cannot measure. You are also a different person than you were before that night. Not worse. Not broken. Just permanently altered. Because you know something now that most nurses spend their whole careers not knowing. You know what it feels like to be the last link in a chain that broke. And that knowledge does not leave. There is a term in healthcare psychology called the second victim phenomenon. It was named in 2000 by a physician named Albert Wu, who wrote a paper about what happens to clinicians after they are involved in a medical error. The patient is the first victim. The clinician, the nurse, the doctor, the pharmacist is the second. And the research on second victims is not small or obscure. Studies show that between 30 and 43% of healthcare workers involved in a serious adverse event develop symptoms consistent with PTSD. anxiety, intrusive thoughts, sleep disruption, hypervigilance. A significant number leave their profession entirely, not because they are disciplined out of it, but because they cannot emotionally return to it. You don't know this term yet, in the weeks after the incident. You find it later in a journal article at 2 a.m. when you cannot sleep. And reading it, you feel something that is hard to describe, a kind of horrified relief, because someone named what was happening to you before you could name it yourself. The hospital where the error occurred implements 5 new protocols in the 18 months following the incident. Biometric refrigerator access keyed to patient ID. Mandatory 2-nurse verification for all blood product transfusions. Separate compartmentalized transport coolers for each patient. A new fatigue policy with actual enforcement. A blood bank labeling redesign. These changes are real. They are documented. They will prevent other errors. Other patients, people who will never know your name, who will never know this night happened, will be safer because of what happened to Daniel. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, a form of consequence that no disciplinary report tracks and no news article covers. The system got better. It got better because it broke, and it broke on a specific night in a specific room with you holding the bag. Here is the question this story keeps asking, and never fully answers. Who is responsible? The blood bank technician who put the bags in the wrong order? The hospital administrator who approved a staffing model that put 4 nurses on 18 patients at 3 a.m.? The architect of a transfusion protocol that relied on individual memory instead of physical double verification? The policy writers who never enforced the fatigue limits? Or you, the nurse who, at the end of an 11-hour shift, did not pull the chart, did not physically verify against the blood bank slip, did not do the 2 extra steps that might have caught a mistake that was already 3 layers deep? The answer, as every root cause analysis will tell you, is all of them. The system failed. And you failed inside the system. Both of those things are true at the same time. And our justice vocabulary, our instinct to find the one person who did the wrong thing, is almost completely useless in the face of that. Daniel, for what it's worth, does not sue. His lawyer sends a letter. There are discussions. There is a settlement offer. He declines it. His wife, in an interview with a patient safety advocacy group 18 months later, an interview you will never see, says that she doesn't want money. She wants to know that it won't happen to someone else. She wants to know that the hospital changed something. When the interviewer tells her that 5 protocols were implemented, she is quiet for a moment. And then she says, I hope whoever that nurse is, I hope she's still a nurse. Because someone who learned that lesson that hard, they're probably really good at it now. You will never hear those words, but they were said. So here is where this leaves you. Not in a courtroom, not stripped of your license, not defined in the end by one night, though that night will never fully leave you. Here is where it leaves you. Standing at a refrigerator at 3 a.m. on a new ward, pulling a bag for a new patient, doing the 2 extra steps you did not do before. Every single time, without exception. Even when you're exhausted, even when the ward is full, even when every instinct from a decade of doing this tells you it's fine, you already know, just hang the bag. You do the steps anyway, because you are the person who knows what happens when you don't. And that is the most uncomfortable kind of knowledge there is, the kind that came from someone else's suffering. The question you will carry for the rest of your career is not whether you were a bad nurse. The question is what you do with being the nurse who now knows.